The Shimada brothers are two of easily the most iconic Overwatch characters. Like when you think Overwatch, at least Genji, I think Hanzo is a little bit secondary to him, but you know, when you think Genji, you think Tracer, right? You think about like the Dragons trailer, which is to this day the most viewed trailer in Overwatch history. Like these heroes were two characters that, especially in the early part of Overwatch's life, really helped shape the identity of what this franchise is. However, as time's gone on, it's been no real secret with Genji, but now really Hanzo as well. These characters have just kind of been mistreated by Blizzard, like just to be blunt with you, whether it's intentional or not. I think to give them credit, they have avoided really nuking Genji in like recent patches where most flankers and mobile characters went down to 225, but it really goes to show you that they're aware of how poorly the hero has been treated internally, because they actually elected to not nerf Genji, whose whole identity is a flanker rather, and take him down to 225 HP. And I kind of just wanted to talk philosophy and the state of these two characters, and I was thinking about doing a state of DPS in general. In Overwatch 2, especially where things are at right now, kind of the downfall of the role, in my opinion, in terms of like its playmaking potential and the opportunities that it actually has compared to the original game. But I really wanted to hone in on these two specific characters, because I don't think there's been a character mistreated in Overwatch more than Genji. And now in Overwatch 2, in recent months especially, Hanzo has kind of joined him on the back burner. So let's talk a little bit about Genji to start. Obviously, he's the obvious one, where Genji, it's a meme at this point, where it's like something's OP, nerf Genji. He never has more than 2 weeks to shine in his metas, even though he is easily one of the most, if not the most demanding characters in the game. You have to have great mechanics, have great patience at the same time to understand how a very fast-paced hero needs to play. Very high risk to reward. Like, he's the embodiment of what a skillful iteration of Overwatch is, and he at best is neutral into most characters. Genji does not hard counter a single character in this game, which is perfect game design. Like, you don't want to, like, if you can avoid a hero hard countering something and make it so that you have to execute and play make and be very, very smart to get value, that's one of the best designed heroes in a game. And I think that kind of depth in the player's gameplay loop and the player agency that you have and the decisions you have to make is what made Overwatch win Game of the Year when it first came out, because every single hero operated that way. But as time has gone on, especially in the support role, and this might be by design, you've seen more easy to play characters just hard counter him with very minimal effort, but those heroes don't get that kind of treatment. For example, let's just talk Overwatch 2. Let's not even like worry about Overwatch 1, because I would say Genji was even better in Overwatch 1 than he is right now, because of a lot of the combos he had that like you could actually make plays on the tank heroes. Granted, not as consistently, but they were all lower HP with weaker ability, so it was much easier to make a play, even on like a hero like a Winston or a Zarya as Genji heroes now that you stand no chance of killing in any matchup because they're so tanky. But let's compare Genji in Overwatch 2 to even Brig, right? Or Moira as well. Like, look at these support ults. Brig's rally has been continuously buffed over and over again. In fact, she just got a secondary bash for free with an AoE stun, damage on the stun. Like, something that's just not very mechanically demanding to do. And get Genji Blade, all it got post Season 9 was a swing speed buff. Which, when you're swinging a wet noodle that does 110 damage a swing, and every hero is at best 225 health, or more often 250 or 300 with a lot of the heroes that are actually pretty strong right now, Genji Blade is not really going to do anything to that. Like, you don't really have an option to play make. But if you look at the support ults and the things of how supports have been changed, like Coalescence just got another buff, right? Lifeweaver Tree got reworked. And you could say as well, look, I think a big design goal of Overwatch 2 and Blizzard was to focus on support, Sam. And that would be fair. There were way more DPS heroes than support heroes. So I think the support heroes got, one, more additions to the role, and two, more attention that they probably needed. You didn't really want support to be left behind. And now we're at a point where support is the most queued role in Overwatch 2. Also the easiest and strongest, with the most consistent gameplay experience in 5v5. So that really helped out the support role a lot. So I'm not saying that you shouldn't give love to support heroes. I actually think that with Juno now, we're at a turning point where they can actually look away from the support heroes and look more to the DPS role and look more to the tank role as well. Hopefully, if they do go back to 6v6, which I personally do think is the better format. But I think we're definitely at the turning point now where, look, Blizzard, it's time to start to look at these heroes. It's time to start to look at Genji. It's time to start to look at Hanzo. Right, where, well, I guess we'll get into Hanzo in a second, but, you know, the state of Dragonblade right now, there's no real playmaking potential. The most common thing you do is you pull out your blade and you force a support ult and you kite out. That's not exhilarating. That's not what made Overwatch a really fun game through one of the most demanding heroes and fun to watch heroes ever put in the game. Right, you know, I'll play this clip right now I saw on Twitter where it's like the blade, it has no chance to pierce any of the support ults. I'm not saying blade should outright beat support ults, but if it does so little damage that it literally has no option to really make that play, then something's been left behind and something's been handled incorrectly. We're going to play that clip right now.
Yeah, probably.
I can try, it doesn't matter. Why not?
Kill.
Oh, that's crazy.
Let me be crystal clear again about what I'm saying here. I'm not saying it should outright pierce all of these abilities. I'm not saying that. But I am saying, you know, there should be a chance for him to make that play. There should be some kind of playmaking that he can make, but because they've left Blade at 110 damage a swing when a lot of these characters are 250 HP, it's just not going to happen. So you have Coalescence getting the damage buffs post-season 9. You have all the support ults getting all the love. Rally gets an extra bash, right? Remember in Overwatch 1, there was that one patch where they giga buffed all the support ults, you know? Like, a lot of these ults get love and care, but not Genji. He just gets overlooked. And you could say the same thing with Hanzo, where the change they made to Dragon Strike didn't actually make it better. It made it situationally worse, where they didn't make the Dragon longer, and all they did was make it move faster, but you can't kill a super tank with that. You would make his combo even worse, when really, combos have been removed from the game altogether. That combo was already bad, but now it doesn't do enough damage to really anything, especially with all these heroes that have mobility abilities. So you don't make the Dragon Strike longer. You don't help it do more damage. You just speed it up. That doesn't help the ult. But Coalescence gets straight up damage buffs. Support ults just get constant more utility over and over and over again. Where is the Shimada hate internally coming from? You know, and you can't convince me there's not a bias against these types of characters internally at Team 4. You can't convince me. Now, again, I do want to give them the credit that they deserve, where they could have nerfed Genji here, and they chose not to because they clearly understood it was past the breaking point. But I just would like an explanation as to why all these supports continuously get the love, continuously get the care, and the DPS heroes don't. They don't get adjusted properly. They get left behind. Genji gets shredded in 2 weeks, but Brig gets continuously buffed. Brig's win rate was already insanely high in like season 7, and then they just decided to randomly buff the whip shot, which made her win rate be higher than Wowga's in every single rank when he was paid to win at his strongest. But Genji just gets left on the farm. And then Hanzo, they finally try to change Hanzo around. And we're going to leave Genji behind for a second. We're going to start to move towards Hanzo. And then I'm going to give my general thoughts here, you know, just in general. But look at this graph. I'm going to have it be put up on the screen right here. It's Hanzo compared to Widowmaker at base. We're going to start with his base here, okay? So they decided that Hanzo, after trying to remove his one shot, simply could not function as a character. He just was terrible. We all knew this. His identity was completely destroyed. He felt miserable to play, and he was already pretty hard to play in general. But I just want to compare Hanzo to Widowmaker here, okay? And this is not about, you know, so DPS versus supports heroes. This is just internally DPS heroes, right? If you look at these graphs, on paper, Widowmaker is better in every way. Like, from an accuracy standpoint, like, she's just the better sniper. And I know Hanzo's not only a sniper character, but they tried to compensate him, one, by bringing him down to 225 HP. They removed the utility where you got to pre-charge an arrow with wall climb and have it already be charged. He's more diveable than Widow is because he can't lunge out of a dive completely. It helps him a little bit, but it won't completely bail him out. Grapple will completely bail the Widow out of the dive altogether, right? And if you look at these charge up times on a hero that has lower accuracy, lower crit rate, lower damage, bullet fall off as a projectile, this just doesn't really make sense. It's crazy to me that they'll revert like his projectile buff. So he's not even benefiting from the season 9 changes. Every hit scan got better bullet size. Every projectile hero got better bullet size. But only Hanzo is going to get progressively nerfed like this and tried to compensate for. Like, he's being compensated. Why? Why does Hanzo get this treatment, but none of the other characters? Because in Gold, people psychologically think that every headshot Hanzo hits is random. It's RNG. He's got lower accuracy stats than every hit scan and every sniper, including Widowmaker. So you can sit there and say that it's RNG, but he's not actually hitting more shots. He's not actually doing more. And granted, these changes helped, but it makes no sense to nerf his primary fire charge rate and then say you want to reduce the amount of arrows he's lobbing out when Storm Arrow is the spammy part of his kit that feels cheesy. And so I get that it's kind of frustrating to die to a one-shot across the map. I'm not trying to take away from people who say that. But why does every other hero, especially supports, I will say, get to maintain their identities and continuously be buffed, but Hanzo and Genji both, but more recently Hanzo, have to get thrown in the wood chipper? Why is that? You know, it doesn't make any sense, especially these two characters. Like, it's the most viewed trailer in Overwatch history. They're core to the identity of Overwatch, and yet it seems like nobody internally cares that their identities have been stripped from them. And I know that the design focus is really the big talk of Overwatch 2 has been supports and tanks and how to make them work in the 5v5 format, but, you know, we can't really ignore how these heroes have just been gutted and ignored. So, you know, I don't think that Hanzo should have a higher charge time than Widowmaker. I don't think he should. I don't think that he should, you know, have been nerfed in that way or compensated in that way. He's weak. Even the Sonar era, I believe, had a detected notification come up on screen now when you get detected. I think that was like Season 3. You guys tell me. I believe that they put that in the game. But Dragon Strike was also mishandled to the point where it's like almost a completely useless ultimate now. It's just not good at all. And it used to be great at splitting two tanks and creating a kill on a tank because the tank didn't have as much resources as it has now. But now the tanks have so much resources that because, again, if it's a solo tank and it has a weakness and it can die, nobody wants to play the tank role because the fight just instantly ends. So they had to super buff these tanks to where if you split one right now, it has so much sustain and so much health, especially with the faster moving dragon, it just won't die. It literally won't die. So what are you supposed to do with Dragon Strike? You don't do anything. So it just seems like these two heroes in particular are just hated by Blizzard. And it just, you know, and I know you might sit there and say, well, no, the devs do care about the characters. They do this. Yeah, but, you know, if you look at the design practices that they've actually implemented for these heroes, their actions would make you disagree. Look at how these heroes have been treated historically and more recently Hanzo. They've not been taken care of properly. They've not been given the gameplay loops and the player agency that, you know, they deserve as really, really cool characters that make people want to log on and play the game. So, granted, to be fair, Hanzo, and I want to be crystal clear about this, did have a strong identity or an okay to good identity really post his Season 10 rework all the way up to Overwatch 2. To be fair, Genji is a different story. I will never understand how a hero like Genji, and I do acknowledge this 100%, I want to make this clear. Hanzo's case is different than Genji's. He's not as demanding as Genji is. He's not as demanding as Genji is, 100%. But he still is pretty demanding, and he has been left behind. But I'd just like to get your all's thoughts, and I know a lot of you on my channel are projectile players. How can you justify this? You know, and if you're Blizzard, do you pivot a little bit? Because I would say you finally brought up the amount of support heroes. Support's the most queued role in the game. The results are there. You've made people want to play support for better or for worse, right? When are we going to start giving these DPS heroes the love that they deserve? Because DPS was the most popular role. The most viewed trailers are these characters. So why can't heroes... why can't you start with Genji and Hanzo and increase Dragonblade's base damage? Make it usable again. Revert that swing speed buff. Give him the damage he needs for the breakpoints to make the character much more viable and actually be able to chase kills. Give Dragon Strike the damage that it deserves. Nerf Storm Arrow and bring him back to where he was previously. You can keep him at 225 health, but bring his charge rate back. You don't have to bring back the pre-charge arrow wall climb. But the fact that these heroes constantly are getting compensated for or outright nerfed, while support heroes just receive buff after buff after buff after buff. And at the worst, when they're too strong, all they do is get a slap on the wrist. And you can look at Brigitte as an example of this. You can look at Kiriko as another example of this. You can look at Alari as a more recent example of this too. Every support either gets to be on the safe side of strong or strong. They're never in the neutral. Never. So why do these DPS heroes that require more skill, more viewed, I guess, in the world in terms of what people think about when they look at Overwatch, why do these heroes never get that chance or get left like this in these states for years, but the support heroes constantly get the love that every hero should in this game? And you tell me. So the point of this video is not to sit here and like flame Blizzard for this. It's more of an open-ended question that I'd like to start to get people to talk about this and just have a discussion. Because like this is not one of those things where it's like, how dare the devs do this? But like it's getting to the point where it's pretty damn silly. It's actually really damn silly. So I would like to see some internal focus come away from the support role for good reasons. I think they got the support role to where they want it to be. Granted, a couple of them are really OP. But, you know, I think post-Juno, it's time to start talking about DPS and how the DPS role has fallen off. You've had seasons in Overwatch 2 where the DPS queue times were instant because the role was so unfun to play. That never once happened in Overwatch 1. Ever. That never happened in Overwatch 1. And there have been several seasons in Overwatch 2 where my DPS queue times are like this. And it's not because the role is fun. It's not because they've made the game good. It's because they made supports and tanks so powerful that DPS was just not fun to play whatsoever. To the point where we had to get Season 9. Where they almost made like the placebo effect hitboxes. So yeah, the Shimadas have fallen off big time. It should be studied how these characters have been mistreated. And I really hope that Team 4 starts to ask some questions. Okay, like how can we make Genji more fun? How can we make Hanzo more fun but less oppressive without destroying their identities? I think Genji is the easy one to answer there. There's Hanzo, I can understand where it comes from. I disagree, and I think that how it's played out with the changes would prove me right in that you can't get rid of his one shot, and he's less oppressive than Widowmaker is, right? But Genji, to me, is the no-brainer, where it's like, all right, guys, like, let's put some effort into making this character proactive and fun again, because I don't care if a bunch of plat players or gold players think he's OP. That is a skill issue. There is no universe where you should be able to pick Moira and Brig and get enormous value compared to a Genji player, when Genji is way more demanding. And the answer might be that support players just buy more skins. Genuinely. I genuinely think that might be the answer. Or somebody internally hates the Shimadas, which I also believe is very possible, because you can't justify these changes to me. So yeah, those are my thoughts on the Shimadas. I just kind of wanted to make a video talking about it kind of briefly and getting my thoughts out there. What would you do to Genji Dragonblade? I think the easy thing to do would be maybe make it do more damage, revert the swing speed, and then say it can't be damage boosted if Nanoblade is too OP. But to be honest, there's so many mobility abilities in the game now, and get out of jail free cards in the support role, and Rally being even better as well, that I wonder if you can actually just straight up buff Blade and it's fine. We'll see though. I think the supports get all this love with their ultimates constantly, and Genji and Hanzo are just left in the dust. Even though when you think Overwatch, you think heroes like Genji, you think heroes like Hanzo. The Dragon's trailer is the most viewed one ever. So I'd like to see them start to look at the DPS role and give it the love it deserves, and stop giving the support role the special treatment. I know the Mercy players buy all the skins. I know that's... I would bet so much money the supports sell more skins than any other role, and that might be why it gets love. I genuinely think that might be what it is, because there's no justifying this in practice. But yeah, let me know what you guys think down below. Thanks for watching. See you later. Take care. And make sure to check out our Patreon, where we have coaching sessions up there for you personally and guides for all of these heroes. So yeah, check it out. Thank you all so much. Take care. Peace out.